start recording. So 74.75. And for some reason this morning I could not stay here. And today is the 15th. Can't believe January is always already halfway gone. Lesson 31, quadratic formula on calculator. Okay, what does Miss Brown ask you every day? And this is it. This is all we're going to do with quadratic formula, with solving quadratics. Because that's, I mean, you solve them. You get two answers. That's about it. Now we're fixing to make them quadratic functions, and we're going to start graphing them next week. So just like you solve linear equations, you know, in pre-algebra, and then you graph lines, well, we've solved quadratics. You get two answers, and now we're going to see what happens when we make them. What do they look like when we graph them? So the first thing Ms. Brown asks is, how do you know by looking at an equation that it's a quadratic equation?
It's going to be like ax squared plus bx equals 0.
Now, what does that mean? Can you be more specific?
Well, it'll be like one number times x
No, that's still not what I'm asking. Why, if I just put an equation up here, I think you're being too specific. How do I know it's a quadratic? Is the main thing I want to know. What does it have in it that makes it a squared? So I've got ax squared. You were just being more specific. The standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now they all have to look like that to factor them or to solve them with a quadratic formula. Now some of them today are not going to be in quadratic form, so we'll dabble in a couple of those too. The second thing, let's see what you remember, and then I'll put a can't be 0 over here. And then what is the quadratic formula? Do you remember it? Did you do it enough with lesson 30 that you know it? X equals negative b, or opposite b, plus or minus, there's your two square roots, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Excellent, excellent. Let's jump in. N squared minus 5n minus 24 equals 0. Now, if you were doing it by hand, you would put n equals, and you would go ahead and do your 5 plus or minus. Now, I'm going to go ahead. You can go two ways. You can do it on the calculator and then write this, or you can do it here and then write it, then punch it in your calculator. But we're going to go ahead and put the radical there, but we're going to let the calculator tell us the discriminant. And then we're going to go ahead and put the 2 times 1, which is 2. And we're going to put equals. And this one is one of the easiest ones because this one actually would have factored just like your quiz. If I could have put this on your quiz the other day, because it will factor. And this is the type that we'll be looking at to help us factor things like 20x squared plus 15x plus 30 equals 0. When you're like, oh, I've got all these numbers to try. And that's where it's kind of a nice feature. Will your teachers always let you use it? No, but hey, you've got it in your back pocket when you need it. So let's get the calculator, which I thought I brought up here, and I did not. So let me go get it. And do you remember how to open a program? Go to program. And you probably should just have two, solve systems and program. Oh, and I need to do something else while I'm up here because I've changed it and I need to put it back like yours is going to be. Go to the default. Okay, so you push program. So what may happen for y'all, Sarah and Emma, is you may want to kind of rewatch the video. In some cases, when you get ready, just kind of skip around and see if there's parts you need that show you the calculator. So I'm going to go to program. It is quadratic. There's different versions of quadratic. This is just the one I really like. To me, it's the best one. So 5, mine's 5, wherever yours is. And then you hit enter, and it should say this. Now, all of yours is archive, which means if your calculator clears, it won't go away. Hunter's is not. There's just some calculators that won't archive it. The danger is if you turn it on and it clears the RAM, it clears your program. So that's the only thing about before you take the ACT, you want to make sure you have the programs. Okay, what is it asking for? A, what is A? 1. I didn't write those, should we? A equals 1, B equals -5, and C equals -24. You're probably not going to write those anymore, but just for your notes, it kind of helps. And then what's B? -5. Remember, negative, not minus, even though the calculator doesn't know the difference, thinks they're different, we know they're the same. And then -24. Now, when you hit enter, it does some amazing things for you. Where y'all had to calculate in lesson 30 the discriminant, it has now done. And I didn't ask you that, but I assumed you remembered that the discriminant was what was under the radical up here. So, see, it tells me this one. So I can go ahead and put my 121 there. Now, why did the answers come out to be nice, pretty answers? What part of this makes it nice, rational answers? Do you have an idea? And it's right here. Is 121 a perfect square? Is it? What's the square root of 121? 11. Yeah, it's 11. If it's a perfect square, always you're going to get nice, rational answers. So that's a big, thing that, if you just know the discriminant, you already know, are they going to be rational answers? Rational, remember, I kept my little map here out, that rational is always going to be over here. They may be fractions, they may be, your calculator is going to give them as fractions if they're rational. I probably should have given you one here, but that's okay. And, but it does make that split right there, and we like that, and we can go ahead and don't have to type all that stuff in, and it's going to give me 8, and what's the other one, -3? Yeah, or -3. So we really like that, and if you haven't finished 30, you want to use it to do it, but please don't. It's just something you need to do by hand, and you need to do it by calculator. Okay, number 2. M squared minus 5m minus 8 equals -5. Now, you had a couple of these on the quiz the other day. Some of you missed one of them, and I didn't intentionally set it up like that. But anyway, you've got to make sure that they're in standard form. Even if this over here, and I think that's what happened on your quiz, even if this over here will factor, then it's still, remember, it's got to, two things multiplied together equal 0. It's that 0 product property. So we've got to get this over here with the other terms. So I'm going to move the 5, and I get m squared minus 5m minus 3 equals 0. So watch that, because you will have some of this. I didn't do that on 30, but they are in 31. Now I have a question for you. I can look at this and know it doesn't have rational answers. And it's not a trick just because I'm the teacher. Can you tell me, especially because that's a 1 out front, are there going to be, right here, is there any way this is going to give me this in the middle? Is there any factors of -3 that will give me a 5 in the middle? No. So I know this is not going to be rational. It won't factor. But then the second thing is, at this point, I don't know whether they're going to be irrational or imaginary. That's the only part I don't know. And what's going to help us will be the discriminant. So, M equals opposite B. A is 1, B is -5, and C is -3. So opposite B would be 5 plus or minus square root, and if you've already punched it, that's fine, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. It's kind of weird. It sets up almost like the first one. So it spirals. So all I got to do is hit enter. And I've got 1, -5, -3. Is it -3? Yeah. 1, -5, -3. What's the discriminant? 37. And then it gives me the 2 approximate answers underneath it. Now, we might need those at some point in mathematics. Most of the time, we leave our answers exact. And 37 is not a perfect square. It's 6 point something, probably 6.0 something or 6.1. So what the calculator has done, at this point, this is not valuable to us. Some cases it will be, but it, bless you. But it does tell me that it is irrational. It falls into this category. That's why, and a lot of quadratic formulas don't have this discriminant in there. So this part doesn't really, it does, I know they're real because there's no I's in it, but this helps me a whole lot because I know why it fits in the irrational side of it. And this one's nice. It won't reduce, so you can leave it as this, or you can separate them. Some of you know how to reduce them without separating them. I'll leave that up to you. I will tell you the ACT would very likely do this. 5 plus the square root of 37 over 2, and 5 minus the square root of 37 over 2. Okay. That's usually what they would put, and they usually put them in set brackets. And the top one is the 5 plus. So if you type 5 plus the square root of 37, enter, divide by 2, that's this one, and 5 minus the square root of 37, enter or parentheses, or that fraction, you know, that alpha x key, then, and divide by 2. That's the two answers. But they're rounded. They're irrational. You can't do math frac on either one of those and get a fraction. You can't write irrational numbers as fractions. I'm sorry?
Which